As an athlete, it's important that we have a very good, strong, confident inner dialogue, but yet not one that creates stress or emotion. Saying things like, I'm going to win, I'm going to destroy this kid. That creates stress. And, we see that on the MMA circuit, but they're trying to sell tickets, right? As an athlete, I would say things like, my opponent's tough, I've trained hard, I plan on bringing my A game, looking forward to this evening. That's it, right? Now, as a coach and parent, you have to do that as well. So there's other videos on here about, successful phrases and rehearsing, having kind of a home mantra or home base to go to for the athlete. But as a parent, sometimes we mess it all up. And sometimes as coaches, we do as well. I remember years ago, I saw a coach, his athlete had just lost, and he says, he threw his clothes in his chest and said, your heart's got to grow, bud. And I'm thinking, wow, you're coach of the year. Why would you say that, right? You don't say that to a 14-year-old kid, right? You don't say those things. So even in those moments when the kids are maybe disappointing and your athlete, your son or daughter even, you don't go into the gut, or you don't kick them in the stomach verbally, right? So think about how you react in those occasions as well, because as a parent and a coach, it's important. So what I would do if my athlete just went there and maybe didn't compete, I would sit down and say, now, you didn't seem like you competed in the end, and I even saw an occasion where you probably could have held on for a stalemate, yet you just your arm melted and you let your opponent go around you. Why did you do that? See, I'm confronting them, but I'm making them digest it rather than just attacking their ego, right? And now they're going to work through this. And then we say, so do you understand that if you quit one time, you will quit 1,000 times? Yeah. Do you understand that if you give your opponent 1 point, you'll give them hundreds of points? Do you think that that's behavior that you need to fix? Yes. I've seen you in practice. I've seen how you push yourself. Why were you so down in the dumps that you didn't compete when the going got tough? There's an emotional toughness issue there that I want you to work yourself through. And then I would just pat him on the back and leave. And then I would come back and practice and say, hey, have you thought about our conversation? Okay. What do you think about that? I mean, see, as a coach, you want to have this intellectual dialogue, like we're trying to solve a freaking math equation or a science project, not an emotional outburst, ego-driven, comments. If you get butthurt because your athlete loses a match, or maybe your son or daughter, if you're a parent listening to this, you've got some big issues, and your kid's chances of success are almost zero. All right. And sure, they're going to make mistakes. You shouldn't overlook it, but you also don't have to be condescending. Now, as a parent or a coach, it's important that you speak to them with, bold, confident phrases, but yet ones that don't create a lot of angst or what we call tension, right? I'll say things like this. Hey, you got a big match. I'm expecting it to be a close one. It was close 2 weeks ago. Are you ready for that? And they'll say, yep. Say, okay, I'll give them 5. I go, I'm going to be over here. I'm going to leave you alone. I expect to see you perform. I expect to see a top physical and mental performance out of you. Win, lose, or draw, I'm expecting greatness out of you. And I'll walk away. See, so I've laid some expectation there, but I didn't tell them I expect them to win. I just said I expect to see greatness in you. I expect to see you bring in the fire, right? I expect to see smart, tough wrestling, okay? And as a coach or a parent, if you say things like, now let's not forget, this opponent is really, really good, and they're fast. Now, are you aware that they have a great single leg, and that they're strong, and that they're fast? Now, you realize they pinned the state champ 2 weeks ago. I mean, we don't want to... Now, I looked at the track score, and their track wrestling IQ is 396 or whatever. I would just stay off of that, those websites as far as, they're ranking Pee-wee kids, okay? I think that's kind of sick in my personal opinion, right? Now, I don't know if you're a 9-year-old and you have a national ranking and a ranking score. I don't know if that's healthy or not in sports. We'll just leave it at that. But I certainly wouldn't bring up things like their track score, how good their single leg is, because all you're doing is you're creating doubt and anxiety in your athlete. I would just say, hey, don't forget your opponent has a great outside attack. Keep your head over your lead knee. Other than that, don't worry about it too much. You get to the legs, you ride, you get away, you win the match. This is a very simple sport. Then I would walk away, right? So we like to speak about the technique side of wrestling in very direct, focused, yet simple phrases. Not, now make sure you control that elbow, with your hand turned at 36 degrees and hold it for 3 seconds. And, if you try to score off of an elbow and they circle left, you might be able to fade out and hit a post leg attack. We don't get scientific. I remember watching before an Iowa Hawkeye in the NCAA finals. His coach shook his hand, looked him in the eye on TV and said, "Go win." And he walked away. Now, sure, you say, well, that's creating tension, to use the win word, right? But yes, but this kid's won 3 world titles in high school. Okay, so this is, you might have certain athletes that you can place high amounts of pressure on because they respond to it. Then your athletes that don't, you don't. Every athlete is a little bit different. But me as a coach who coaches thousands of kids a year and has several hundred in my wrestling academy and, a team of coaches that are helping, we like to be a little more systematic. But, go win, that's direct. How about, I tell kids this in practice all the time. I'm like, hey, Ryan, he's getting to your legs a lot. Don't let him, and I'll walk away. And it's like freaking magic. That kid won't let people on his legs. Now, if it is a technique issue, like, hey, I've watched, you're reaching with your attack hand and your opponent's getting to your legs. Right? We had one of our former wrestlers who wrestles in college. I was at his match 2 weeks ago. Same thing. He's tapping the face, right? And his opponents were scoring. And I counted. I go, okay, in that first period, that kid was on your leg 3 times. He got a takedown once. Then you got away, he got in, you scored. We were winning 3-2, or he was going into the third period. But then the kid got on his legs 2 more times, right? And so, well after the match, I sent him a text, and I'm like, I watched the match, and I would screenshot it with my cell phone and say, right here is when you were reaching for the face, almost with 2 hands, and he got to your legs. Watch this match in slow motion, and watch the times that he scored. All right, so now what we're doing is, we're pointing out detailed opportunities or lack of opportunities or when your opponent's getting to your legs. So I'm not saying to ignore that. I'm just saying there's too much of it. There's too much warning these athletes or trying to clog their mind up with, these are the 37 steps that you need to do to win this match. Because I see parents, they throw the clipboard down. I told you to listen. We had the whole match figured out, right? No. I remember my son, his freshman year, if he beat the number 8th ranked kid in the nation, well, the kid went on to get 8th in senior nationals. Beat him bad, 11-5 or 6. It was awesome. Second round at state, he has a kid with 18 losses, right? But this kid my son had wrestled many times, and it was usually pretty close. And, my son's was like a rag doll when he went on the mat and he lost. I just wanted to punch the wall, all right? And they had some young coaches, great guys, but they really screwed my kid because they were like, they told me in the stand. Now, we stayed up to 12:30 last night watching this match, and we got it figured out how Ty can beat him. I'm like, dude, don't go freaking out my son. You know what I told him? I go, this kid has 18 losses. Season's only 16 weeks. You don't wrestle, we don't wrestle during the first 3 weeks of season, and we don't wrestle a week over Christmas, so season's only 12 weeks. This kid has 18 losses. Every 6.5 days, someone beats this kid's ass, Ty. Go beat the shit out of this kid and make the semis. That's exactly what I told him, and that was like really good wrestling coaching advice. So meanwhile, I'm back at my hotel, and Ty's getting attacked by these young coaches, and they stayed up till midnight. And I'm like, after the match, I was like kind of mad at them. I'm like, would you guys stay up till midnight before a dual meet? If Ty had to wrestle this kid in some just stupid, lousy dual meet, no, you wouldn't have stayed up till midnight breaking down the film. No, you're the ones that ruined my kid's opportunity to win that match because you're novice, young coaches and you're all emotional and you want to guarantee success. No, he just beat the number 2 ranked kid in the state who's a senior. My kid's a freshman. That kid goes on to get 8th at senior nationals 3 weeks later. And he beat the hell out of that kid, and he lost to him in overtime 3 weeks earlier. So, I mean, that was no fluke what he did. And then he goes out there and loses to a kid with 18 losses. And it's all because the coaches scared the hell out of him because they were trying to scientifically break down this match, which they wouldn't have scientifically broken down before a dual meet, you know? So there's a good story attached to my advice. So, yes, your athletes should have clear, decisive thoughts that are organized, that are not too scientific. You as a coach or parent, you shouldn't warn your kids about how good their opponent is. You might point out their habits, right? You don't look at their track wrestling score. We don't scare the hell out of them. We certainly don't try to scientifically break down the match. I know a guy who just he placed in the Olympics. He goes, I've never watched a broke down film in my life. I don't watch my opponents. Because when I watch my opponents, I end up worrying about them. So some of you who are trying to break down film, you might be doing a disservice. Now, some athletes like that, right? I, as an athlete, like to know. My dad, I'm like, just tell me, tell me some habits here, tendencies, and that's all I want to know. My son was the same way. I say, hey, the kid rides legs, left-legged. That's all right? And he's a cross-body ride guy. Okay, that's it. Don't worry about it. Go beat his ass. That's kind of the end. We always end with, a bold, successful phrase or whatever. But, now, but there are some athletes who I know one who was an NCAA runner-up. He likes to know exactly. He was a real scientific kind of kid. He liked to break down film and so forth, right? So everyone's a little bit different. But I don't think that it's always a good thing. So know your athlete, know your son or daughter, and remember their personality might be different than yours. They might not be someone who likes to know 37 talking points about this future match. But I do think it's vitally important that we talk to our kids like this. Well, just watch the NCAA finals. Before the finals, they interview these guys. They're like, hey, it's going to be a tough one. This is the moment I've dreamed about. I've been wanting to be an NCAA champion since I was a kid. Tomorrow night is my opportunity. I've trained hard for this. I deserve to win, but my opponent is also good. I need to stay in my positions, and I got to fight through the tough spots that happen in the match, and that's all I can do. That's what you're going to expect out of me tomorrow night. Boom. That's what they say. So you can watch a lot of these college guys before the NCAA finals. Their interviews are on YouTube. But we want to have that kind of dialogue internally as an athlete and even outwardly, maybe on an interview or something. But we as parents and coaches, we want to kind of talk and direct bold statements, statements that do not cause tension or stress. And we certainly want to avoid warning labels placed all over our, our future opponent. So there's some advice. Hopefully it will help some of you, because I think that sometimes this and our thoughts are ultimately what screw us up. And then when we are disappointed and we're not happy with how our season or match went, we go back to the drawing board. But it's the wrong drawing board. We say, I'm going to work harder and I'm going to learn more moves. I'm going to drill moves. I'm going to lift weights. Well, but we never truly addressed the reason we lost. And that's why I like putting some of these YouTube videos out there, just trying to open your mind to success in the sport of wrestling beyond technique and wrestling moves and being in shape and lifting weights. So check us out at PurlerWrestling.com. Good luck.